But Dr. Oser is a clinical psychologist. She earned her degree in 1997, and after being a therapist for a number of years, she shifted towards professional development and education within a large healthcare organization. And she currently is the director of leadership and wellness there. And Ray was born in Michigan, where her entire family still lives. And she has 2 teenage daughters who give her opportunities to practice self-care, particularly deep breathing.
My goal for tonight is really to have a conversation amongst all of us as fellow clinicians and human beings and people going through this crazy time. Okay. So as you know, the topic for tonight is self-care. And let me also preface this by saying, chances are I'm not going to say anything that's going to be a revelation in terms of information, although I try to pluck from literature or research, things that I found interesting or I found particularly poignant. So we can go throughout. But again, I'm really hopeful that this will be a conversation. So we're going to talk about a few topics today. But as we get into the mindset, does this look familiar? And I'm really curious, and it's hard to see everybody. So please feel free to off mute too. How many of you are working from home primarily now versus in the past? All right, I can at least see some hands. Ooh, hold on, I'm gonna scroll. Awesome, okay. So this is a particularly challenging time to have self-care. So I'm gonna try to include some pointers throughout. But for many of us, this is the new reality, right? You've got kids bouncing in the background. You've got the desk stacked with toilet paper. This is in the early days of the pandemic, right? When you were like, woo, I got toilet paper. So we're in a different time. And as clinicians, we might know self-care, but it's really hard to do. And so again, that's what we're going to talk about, not only so that we can be role models for our clients or our patients, but we can also talk with them about it. So that's where we're headed. I'm going to start here. I want you to just take a minute. Hopefully you can see the screen. These are the 6 topics we're going to talk through today. And I'm curious, and again, this is going to be, Natalie, you're going to help me. We're going to start with the first one, right? I get enough sleep each night to feel buoyant in the morning. If that is true for you, if you can honestly say, yep, that's me, just go ahead and put your hand up, okay? Okay, we're going to go to the second one. And if you didn't get this first one, no worries, we're going to see who's like the most out of here. If you can also say, yep, I eat well and choose healthy snacks to keep my energy up most of the time, just keep that hand up, okay? Third one, if you can say, yep, I make time to exercise regularly, keep that hand up. Anybody got a hand yet all the way still up? Nice, okay.
I think Rachel, not to call you out, but.
See, this is good, yeah, because I can't see Natalie, so that's super helpful. Fourth, if I see my mind wandering from a current task, I'll take a break to refocus. That's about oscillating energy. That's true for you. Keep that hand up. Fifth, I take time each day to savor my blessings and practice gratitude. Okay, and the last one, consider tasks done even if everything is not perfect. All right, who's got their hand up still? And if you do, please come off mute and give us 10 seconds about what your secret is.
I see you, Dr. Lindsay Kittredge.
Go for it, Lindsay. You're on mute. You unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, I did. Thanks. I didn't have all of them. I had most of them. I think the fact that my daughter's in college does make a difference, or out of college, or anyway, not living at home makes a big difference. That I really am pretty disciplined about about my daily schedule and trying to include exercise. But I think if I had little ones, or I had, I think it's challenging, and I'm not working full time at home. But like today, I did notice that I was most of the day on screen at home, and it is more challenging. It's more complicated to get the video, making sure there's just a lot of anxiety, just making sure everything's working. And that you're going to be through with it. But I don't know if I have any other magic.
No, that's really helpful though, right? Because what I'm hearing and what you're saying is two things, right? One is certainly the environment and the circumstances, whether you have kids at home or not, whether we're in shelter in place or not. But then also you said that, you're disciplined. And to me, when I hear disciplined, I hear that, but I also hear habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk a little bit tonight about how do you incorporate micro habits and, just little things that are practical and already anchored into your day that can help.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. Anybody else before we move on want to share? Okay, I'm going to keep going. Okay, first topic, sleep well. And again, these should be things that even intellectually, but never hurts to have a reminder, right? So obviously we all know the importance about sleep and what it does for our mind and our body and our spirit. Most adults do need 7 to 9 hours per night. Even if we don't get it, that's really what our body needs in order to function at its optimum without the help of caffeine or other byproducts. Minimal sleep has been shown to have cognitive effects, right? There's this wonderful, I shouldn't say wonderful, research done about, missing 4 nights sleep is about the same as driving slightly intoxicated, which is, again, to me, it's always like, okay, I know this, but it's good to review. And then my personal favorite is the last one in terms of the significantly stronger neuronal response to junk food if you're not getting enough sleep. So we know this, I'm not going to belabor these points. Here are the tips to improve your sleep. You can quickly scan them. Again, hopefully these are things that you know and are practicing to the extent that you can, as well as talking with your clients and patients about. The last one is particularly tricky this time, right? I don't know, again, for how many of you, but certainly in our atmosphere, bedrooms are now makeshift offices, and beds with desk laps and all sorts of things are really workplaces. And again, just to state the obvious, it's really hard for your body to understand the difference. Now, here's some things that might be helpful, especially for those of us who are working from home, is to create a home to work commute, right? To kind of tell your body when your day is going to begin, when your work day is going to begin, and when your work day ends. And again, the examples are just, just some samples. But I'm curious for any of you, how many of you have a ritual or something that kind of makes a distinction between your workday and your home life? And if you do, please come off mute and share.
I don't think my video's on right now, but I can't figure out how to turn it on. This is
Nope,
Josh.
I see you, Josh.
One thing I try and do, and I don't do it as religiously as I'd like, is I do have a makeshift office. So, I've got my office has been taken over by my kids, which is now their learning center. And my desk has been replaced into our master bedroom. So when the end of the day comes, what I like to do is walk out the sliding glass door into the backyard, walk around to the front of the house and come in through the front door. And then the handle of the front door is almost like a transitional object where I'll just take a breath and then come into the door. And it's just a little bit of a ritual that I have that marks the end of my day and the beginning of a new part of my day, so that I'm not bringing the baggage of the workday with me into the house as I was during the earlier stages of the pandemic.
Perfect. That's a lovely example. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yep.
That's exactly what we're trying to figure out, right? Is how to tell your brain, okay, this is different and that's different when you're in the same environment. So that's perfect. Okay, we're going to go on to nutrition. And then I'll stop in a minute and see if there are any questions. Okay, strategic eating and drinking in this day and age, right? Aim to eat about every 4 hours. There's some people on one end of the spectrum, they're like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I forgot to eat. And then there are other people, yourself included, who, just kind of, I do a lap in the kitchen after every client or every meeting. So obviously for your optimal performance, you're looking to eat every 4 hours. Snacks are 100 to 200 calories. And then these other couple of tips are more around, portion or proportion in terms of using smaller plates, bowls, and utensils, eating, stopping when you're 80% full. And then I found this one interesting. This, again, I try to include things that even mild dehydration leads to cognitive decline. And again, this can be tricky for those of us working at home if we don't have a ritual to get water or to go grab a cup of coffee or to stretch your legs, something like that. So those are some hopefully, again, tips to reinforce, not only for you, but for your patients and clients. So my next question is, what are your current daily eating habits? Who's got something that they like have something, a good idea or a best practice to share with the group? What's working well, especially when you're working from home?
I was going to say when DoorDash doesn't forget my delivery. No, no. I find it. I find that it's a little more challenging because I'm having to cook more at home, or I be eating out all the time. Bringing in food from the outside all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what the challenge is when you bring food from restaurants in, it's obviously more caloric. You don't know what's in it. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, it's really critical to, be careful that I cook more than I just rely on outside food. And I do portion control and have more vegetables and more fruits. But I think when I do that, that's working well for me. And when I order too much food in, it can be a problem. So I'll say that.
Good. Thanks, Jim. I can relate to that. Okay. Anybody else before we move on?
I'll share a little on that piece. One thing that my husband and I do, and we don't necessarily do it every week, but we try to do it as often as we can, is to do meal prep kind of on Saturday or Sunday.
Nice.
Just so that there is something quick and easy and portion control, a healthy little tub, so that when it's time to have lunch, you don't have to really think about it. It's just already there.
Nice.
Take some more prep on the front end in terms of the grocery list and thinking about what you might want to make and doing that, but it helps so much through the week when we're able to do that.
That's a fantastic example. Thank you for sharing that. And that's going to touch on something we're going to go to in a few minutes, which is having something ready-made helps because it's one less decision that your brain has to make. And again, we're gonna get there in a moment. So thank you. Okay, let's talk about exercise. Gee, I'm trying to get rid of like the sleep, diet, exercise thing, and then we'll get to the just as interesting but sort of funner stuff. We all know the mental health benefits of exercise. I do not have to tell a virtual room of clinicians, right, the importance it is about moving your body and what it does. So I'm not going to belabor this point, just a little reminders of things. But let's talk about this, because again, this was something that resonates with me, that some exercise is better than no exercise. And there was this great study that was done where even a micro workout of 20 seconds actually gives you quite beneficial effects in terms of all of the natural endorphins that are released and muscle and strength and things like that. So what I encourage you, and you can again encourage your clients or your patients, is to try any one of those things on the bottom for 20 seconds. I can tell you, doing jumping jacks for 20 seconds, you're going to feel it, right? These are like high intensity kinds of things. And if you can incorporate that, maybe as a ritual in between clients, or maybe as a ritual or a micro habit, before lunch, something like that, that's better than nothing. I know I'm not saying anything that you don't already know, but sometimes, and I don't know again if it's true for you, but sometimes I'll be like, oh, I was going to say it's raining, but it doesn't rain here. But if it were raining, be like, oh, it's raining, so I can't go for my walk, right? Or, oh, I don't have time to do my full thing, so I'm going to sit on the couch and, look at Facebook for a half hour. Where instead, if I can literally walk around the block, then that's going to be better than nothing, especially over time. Right? Consistency is one of the number one things for all health habits, but certainly for exercise. There's this great quote saying, you can't be consistently great, but you can be great at being consistent. And that's the key. Okay, I won't belabor that. So this will be a rhetorical question, unless one of you is feeling like you just started something. But what exercise are you willing to commit to trying this week? Right? The other thing, of course, that we all know about behavior change is the more specific and concrete it is, the more likely you are to do it. So if you're thinking about trying something new or reincorporating something, using the when then sentence structure is super helpful. So when the clock strikes 7, then I will do such and such, right? When it's Tuesday, I will do such and such. So trying to get specific about what your plans are can be super helpful. I'm going to pause here, see how we're doing. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. So, yeah? All right. moving on. Okay, manage your energy levels. So this is again an interesting thing in terms of what I consider interesting. So, as we know, our bodies need to balance energy. What you see on the right-hand side is really, the body's natural state, where there's stress, you have a challenge, and then you need to recover. And the bad news is, for many of us, that sine curve looks like, more like a huge hill with like a little blip of recovery because of our circumstances, whether it be that we have kids at home or whether it be that we're in shelter in place or whatever might be happening. The good news is, and what comes out of the sports psychology world, what researchers have found is that even a micro recovery of just a few seconds can make a huge difference. They did a study of elite tennis players, and what they noticed is that after looking for everything in terms of hours of practice and their swings and their coaches and everything else, what they noticed finally is that the difference between the elite tennis players and the not so elite but still really good tennis players is exactly this. The elite tennis players in between serves had these just a few seconds of micro recovery where they would do something usually ritualistically, habitually, to kind of help their body calm themselves, right? Whether it was a deep breath, whether it was saying a mantra, whether it was visualizing their next serve, whatever it was, that was the key. It didn't take them 20 minutes, although I'm fully a huge proponent, all right, of having a more immersive sort of time to unwind, but it's literally a matter of seconds. So when you think about it, here are just again some ideas for micro recovery throughout our days, right? To stretch after every phone call, or at the start of each visit, take a deep breath or take a couple of deep breaths, right? This third one I think is obviously super important, as we're all on screens most of the days. Take an eye break, right? Your eye was not meant to focus at this 18-inch depth for hours on end. So look beyond you, look outside. That can also kind of help just restore some energy. And of course, get up out of your chair. Again, I don't know about you, but this is my, my self-disclosure time. Like, I have literally sat in my chair for hours and hours and hours during some days without getting up, right? And it's obviously not the best, but it happens. So just, little micro recoveries, even if it's literally just a stand up and then a sit back down, okay? I won't make you do that right now because it's drinks for strengths, and hopefully you can, take a little swig of a beverage and that'll be your recovery. Hopefully this is part of your like rest and recovery, that this isn't a period of stress for you. So I'll go with that. This is another thing, it was what it was alluded to earlier, is to create routines and stick to them, right? The human brain is an incredible processing machine. However, for the 50 bits per second it can process, about 11 million bits are coming in, right? Of everything around you, everything internally. So the more you can standardize your day and stick to routines, the more cognitive energy it's going to leave you. So having pre-made lunches is perfect. One of the side benefits, again, don't know about you, but for me, of the whole pandemic and working from home is I literally have probably 2 outfits that I wear each day, or, on consecutive days. And so I have a whole closet of work clothes that I haven't even looked at, right? And that's a little thing, but it's sort of, it frees up the cognitive brain, right, to focus on other things. And right now, in the past 7 months, we've needed a lot of cognitive heavy lifting to just make sense of the world, to get into new routines, etc. By now, many of us probably are creating these routines, right? So it's not quite as cognitively taxing as it was in the early days. So the more you can do that, the more you can offload. There's we could talk for a long time about this, but I won't belabor the point. But it's really, you want to make as many things habitual as you can so that you don't have to spend time thinking about them. Okay. Let's talk about gratitude. Again, I don't need to tell you all about this at all. We know the importance of practicing gratitude. And hopefully you all are doing it in some way, shape, and form to savor your blessings. The point I wanted to make on this is the whole, the avoid the behaviors that block gratitude, right? The don't compare and despair. And I'd love to hear from you guys what that looks like for you. And for me, as I was thinking about this, the compare and despair in this day and age is, I haven't learned Mandarin in the 7 months. I've never made sourdough bread, nor could I if my life depended on it. So I'm feeling, sometimes I feel a little like, oh, I should be using my time more productively. I should grab a new skill. I don't even Zoom with my parents more than I would otherwise, right? So in this day and age, it can be even more challenging, right, to not compare and despair, because we're all kind of grasping for what does new normal look like, right? Human beings are social creatures. We look to see, well, what are you doing? And what are you doing? And how are you handling it? And so to the extent that you can not do that, and instead be grateful for who you are and what you have, the better you'll be. And I know this isn't anything new for you, but it's just a good reminder. And these are some ways, right, to cultivate gratitude. It doesn't necessarily have to be write 3 things that you're grateful for, although that's a wonderful thing. It could be, who was a great teacher for you? What's your favorite holiday, right? Recall a favorite meal. What did that look like, right? There's this notion about savoring moments or experiences or memories that helps encode it more into your brain. It's going to make it easier to recall when you need to. Okay, looking at time. Doing pretty well. Before we go to self-compassion, anything more on gratitude that y'all want to share? This is a topic that's ripe for best practice sharing or something that works for you.
I think for me, gratitude has come out of vulnerability and talking to people and getting a different perspective. Like sometimes I'll call my friends and say, oh, I'm so lonely. And they're like, be grateful you don't have a partner that you want to stab every day right now. So that's really helped. I think sometimes when we just complain about our situation and then talk to someone, it helps reframe things in our mind.
Yeah. Thank you, Natalie.
Sure.
It's tricky though, right? Like, because there's this, there's other research too about differential power or differential status. And so for some of us, if we're kind of here and we say, oh, I wish I were quarantining like the Hollywood stars are, right? In their 20-bedroom mansion with their bowling alley and that kind of thing. Then obviously that kind of lets us feel less than. It's also a little tricky if we go too far down and we although a lot of us do it and there's benefits, so I'm hedging a little bit on this. But if we think, oh, I should be grateful that I have a job and I have a roof over my head, etc. If you can do that genuinely without guilt creeping in, then I would say keep doing it. But if it's meant to kind of squash, that feeling of anxiety or frustration or disappointment, then that's trickier. Because as we're going to talk about self-compassion, that frustration, that disappointment, that's very real. And so as long as the gratitude is like, it's the whole, like, there are starving kids, eat your rice kind of thing. Well, it can sometimes backtrack. I don't want to belabor the point.
For me, real quickly,
Please.
I think that and what you said earlier with the exercising or the resting, it also is kind of like this in this micro moments of being grateful. I see that too, and I try to look for those, be it a nice sunset or the fact that I had a quick laugh with my daughter, or whatever it might be. Is I try to look for those little things that I feel grateful for. So it's kind of like in the same way that you were talking about micro exercises, I think that there's micro moments of gratefulness that work for me pretty well.
Nice. Thank you. Absolutely right. Life is made of moments. And so the moments slip by if you don't pay attention to them. Thank you for that. That's really nice.
For me,
one thing I try to do
you
is.
guys hear me?
Oh, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Like for me, is looking after going to search for silver lining in any situation you are. If you find the silver lining, there you have a point for gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. Someone else was going to say something.
I was going to say, try to make eye contact with each of my 3 kids, including my adult son who's here, each day. It's amazing how we can just cross each other, even though we're in the same house, and just try to say, hey, how are you? Not what are you doing so much, but just trying to connect. And their teenage boy tried to squirrel away and just try to bring him back and say, we have this. We have the 20-year-old son who would rather be at college, but he's here. And it's actually been a point of incredible gratitude.
Aw, that's lovely. I'll have to remember that the next time my teenage daughters drive me insane,
That's right.
which should be in about 40 minutes. Good. Anyone else, please?
I was going to say a little bit in that vein. My son, my older child, is now 5.5, and he, from the time he was born, I think there was a period when he was a few months old where every single day I had said to him, "Has your mommy mentioned today how much she loves and adores you?" And at some point, maybe he was about 2, he started to say yes. And so I notice now sometimes, even actually in the middle of when he's throwing a tantrum and he's sort of at his worst moment, sometimes I'll notice and I'll just sort of stop and go, "Has your mom mentioned today how much she loves and adores you?" And it sort of resets a little bit. And it's one of those moments where I realize, like, no matter what's going on, the bigger picture is. And I try to hold that, not the but the and. There's this crazy thing going on, and the bigger picture is. So.
That's lovely. I got goosebumps as you were describing that, because I was thinking on so many levels how amazingly powerful that is. How amazingly powerful it is for your son to hear that, right? Every day of his life almost. And think of the benefits that that's paying forward. Although I know that's not why you're doing it, but he'll take care of you when he's an adult and well functioning. But also what a benefit for you, not only to have this sense of gratitude, but the third piece is what a wonderful mantra. Right? We talk sometimes about having a foxhole mantra of, like, what is your go-to when, things are flying metaphorically? And not to say that that's yours, but that's what popped into my head as you said that, is just to have that to kind of reset everything, right? And by now, your brain and your body have attributed it to so many wonderful times, right? That it's the perfect thing to use in those more challenging times. So thank you for that. That's lovely. See, this is what's so amazing about you guys, is I can just ask questions and you guys do all the answering. Okay, before we get to self-compassion, the one thing that I thought too, there's this wonderful book, and I can.
Sorry, sweetie.
Oh, sorry. There's someone called me sweetie? No, probably not. That was probably extraneous, but I'll take it. There's this wonderful book called The Book of Awesome. And the author, if I could pronounce his name properly, I would. It's Neil, and his last name starts with P. It's just a collection of little moments to savor, right? Like turning your pillow over in bed to get to the cool side, right? So if you're at all interested, it makes a really good gift. I gave that to my team one year. It's just a nice gift. So The Book of Awesome. I have no affiliation, nothing like that, but that just popped into my head as the previous speaker was talking about those, those little moments of looking your child in the eye. Okay, let's move on. Practicing self-compassion can be tricky, right? Clinicians were trained to identify what's wrong, right? I can start a symptom checklist in my head, so it can be a little tricky to hardwire, because as we all know, the brain is hardwired to look for losses and threats, right? There's this wonderful saying that for good things, your brain is like Teflon, and for bad things, it's like Velcro. And so as clinicians, and human beings, I should say too, we're always focused on the disappointments or the downsides. It can be really, really challenging for us. Again, I'm not going to belabor this too much, because as clinicians, I'm sure we've all done our own internal work regarding self-compassion. However, in this particular time, I'm seeing that it's really, really important to just remind ourselves that we are human, and that we're all grieving at this stage for innumerable things on an almost daily basis. And so just to, give ourselves a little bit of slack. So we know it's so important, because when you're a little bit calmer and gentler with yourself, all of the physical aspects, right, change from when you're being harsh with yourself. And I really like this third point, because to me, there's kind of like, well, what's the so what? But as we're compassionate, then we are actually more able to incorporate feedback, right? It's not about being Pollyanna-ish or denying, but when we can be like, okay, this is the reality, and I'm holding it with compassion for myself, or in a loving, gentle way, then we can actually grow. So this is my next question for you guys. How do you practice self-compassion, particularly in our current environment? What are some little, big, independent social things that you all do? Or are we all just completely whacked in this regard?
The only thing I'm going to say, I'm going to jump in quickly, is that for me, it's working on not being perfect, accepting things out of my control, accepting the cancellation culture we live in, accepting that, accepting myself, and I know that in some of the work, we do, some of us are trained in this STEM, whether it's emotional focus therapy or EMDR, but looking at this idea of learning to completely love and accept ourselves when, we're really, we find ourselves experiencing things out of our control, or mistakes happen, or we're not perfect. And so I think in this environment, there's so much that is out of our control. It's really important to be self-compassionate in order to be resilient. So I think it's critical for resiliency.
Absolutely, Jim. And I think I just want to underscore what you were saying, that in this environment, there are so many things out of our control and so many unknowns. And for those of us, or even all of us who have this piece about perfectionism, right? It's knowing what's going on and being able to do something about it. And right now, neither one of those are happening, right? We don't know what's going on and we don't know what to do about it. As a society, as a global community, much less, should I send my kid back to school or not, right? Should I, anyway, all the sorts of questions that we don't know. So thank you. I agree. It's really, really critically important now, and really hard. I don't know about for you, but for me, even in with my background and training and working with my team, all of us at some point are saying, yeah, I'm having one of those days, right? Where I'm not thriving, I'm surviving. And so then there's the processing of that, but then there's also the meta processing of it, and that's okay, right? It is really okay that I have yet learned to learn Mandarin or bake bread, and or not do the 10 other things that I would have wanted to do today. So, and I won't belabor the point. I just wanted to give us some space to sort of acknowledge this. Because one, it's a natural human tendency to not. Secondly, given the environment of not knowing what's going to happen next and not being able to control it, it's even more important. Anybody want to comment before I move on? Okay, so the last piece, and then we'll have a couple minutes for questions, but I know that there's a lot happening for this meeting too, is the importance of laughter. And this to me kind of sums up everything, right? In terms of energy levels and endorphins and self-compassion and gratitude. Because as we know, well, I don't know, as you might know, right, laughter is really, really good for us. That's, why evolutionarily speaking, we laugh as human beings. Because of the endorphins and the hormones that it releases, it's a huge social bond between people. You can, there's been a lot of social psych studies. I'm sure many of you are more familiar with it than I am, in terms of if a couple can laugh together, right, they're much more likely to have a strong relationship. If a team can laugh together, it's much more likely to be effective and productive. So I am pleased that I am the what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of like the first round before we get some comic relief. So I wanted to leave you with that.